Hey, what's up guys, this is the Alchemic here, and today I'm gonna go over everyone's favorite Hearthstone class, which is of course Shaman. This has to be the most notable class over every player's mind as it has taken over ladder tournament play and is by far the most discussed class on Reddit now, aside from Priest. Today I have in my mind my nerfs for the top 5 cards that are pushing the class to a high tier position. And remember, these are my nerfs, so if you agree, disagree, or just want to comment, please leave it down below. So I just want to throw out my 2 main conditions that I kind of judge these cards on, and really just the main problems with the game right now. The first is that the meta is very tempo and aggro game because there are just too many cards that you have to, prioritize to remove. Cards that you just can't leave up on the board, like Malkazar's Imp, Flamewaker, and Frothing Berserker. The first ones come out real early in the game, and you as the opponent have to remove it. As you know that you can't leave it up since you can't let them get value out of it. And then the second one comes and you kind of struggle to remove it. And when the third one comes out, it just does too much damage, draws too many cards, or takes such a board advantage that you just can't deal with it. And then you pretty much lose the game because they just snowball out of control. The next main condition that I have for this list is simply too much upside without enough or reasonable downside. A card like Fiery War Axe, for example, is some kind of similar to this criteria where drawing it when you need it on turn 1 with the coin or turn 2 is just simply too overwhelming for any deck's early game. But if you draw this card later in the game, you're not kind of salty or tilted at all from drawing it because removing a minion is never bad, and a card like Fiery War Axe can double up as damage to finish off the opponent. So I'm nerfing these cards. I'm also keeping in mind the balance in mind as a priority that Ben Brode often mentions also, which is kind of the soul card, what its idea is mainly. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to get started. So number 5, in the number 5 position to be nerfed, we have 2 cards kind of sharing the same position, Flametongue Totem and Mana-Tide Totem. These cards have very similar roles, and which is in the first reason I mentioned that they're priority targets in the early game. When they first come out, you pretty much have to have about a turn or 2 to efficiently or conveniently remove it. And of course, in doing so, the Shaman plays just another one like it, and it kind of leads you to being unstable to remove it, or unable to remove it, I'm sorry. And, of course, these cards just generate too much value for their mana cost if left untouched. Flametongue provides so much attack power for the mana cost, and Mana-Tide Totem is just incredibly efficient for 3 mana, knowing that you're going to draw a card at the end of the turn. In addition, they count as totems, so, the opponent can just play Thing from Below or Feral Spirit to protect it, and then it's completely out of reach to keep generating value, unless, you're playing Tempo Mage or something of that sort. So my nerf for these, my suggestion for the nerf is as follows. Both cards, I think, can be reduced to 2 health, not 2 mana. I think all the basic totems had 2 health, and I don't understand what makes Flametongue and Mana-Tide special. Totem Golem having 4 health I kind of understand because it is more like a living totems kind of feel, and that's, like I said, going back more to the soul of the card. But making these 2 special totems have 2 health, open them up to more removal and early game removal, something that's a bit more efficient. You can remove it with like Living Roots, Holy Smite, Azure Drake Swipe, and then Consecrate, and they become more open. So you can remove these, and you're still, like I said, keeping the value or the idea in the game of the card is still in the game. So the Shaman can still get value from them, but it's just easier to remove. But anyway, another idea I kind of had was to nerf the effect, like make Flametongue a 0/3 a 0/3 that gives 1 attack to adjacent minions, or gives only 2 attack on the Shaman's turn. And also for Mana-Tide, I would change it to be similar to a pre-nerf Nat Pagel as a 3 mana 0/3 with 50% chance to draw a card. Or just make it like the normal Nat Pagel, 50% chance to draw a card at the beginning of the turn, or maybe even just guaranteed to make it to draw a card at the beginning of the turn. That way, you're not necessarily. It's more of like a risk involved. So when they roll it, they don't immediately gain value from it. But I guess Flametongue is less so than Mana-Tide because Flametongue you actually need to have minions on board that haven't attacked that turn. Because if you just roll it on turn 3 Tuskar, it's not the best. It's still very hard. You still need to remove it immediately, but it's not as good as dropping it when you got a board full of totems that you can just trade on both sides. So so that's that. Anyway, So this way, like with these nerfs, I think the totems would be less of a priority to remove, and having the totem tribal synergy would make the decision of whether or not to play it over the most comparable cards in Dire Wolf, Alpha, and Nat Pagel. So that cards like Thunderblast Valiant will still be able to buff it with that upside, but it'll just overall have a weaker effect. So you're kind of faced in deck building. You're gonna choose which one you want to play. But overall, I think reducing to their health to 2 is kind of the most reasonable thing for Blizzard to do. But I don't think the others are necessarily locked out of the picture because they can totally. I feel like all these are totally reasonable. But anyway, next up we have at number 4 Thing from Below. Honestly, I think this card is just very poorly designed. It's just a snowbally card, especially when played on curve with a bunch of totems like Flame Tongue and Manatide. And with so many strong cards in Shaman, there's really no way to remove all of them. There's just so many of them. And oftentimes playing this card or Thunder Bluff just seals up the game because not only does this protect your priority targets, but it throws a 5/5 taunt, which shuts out so many of the ways to remove attacks from minions and weapons. You want to kill, use your damage on the Flame Tongue and Manatide, but the thing is the Shaman already has, Taunt Totem, it has a Feral Spirit, and this is just too much taunt, I feel like. It's just so easy to play this card. And it's no surprise that Reddit and Twitch chat both consider this card effectively a 0 mana 5/5 taunt. So my suggestion for a nerf would be to either increase the cost of this card by either 1 or 2 to 7 or 8 mana with 5/5 taunt, leave the card, or leave the cost and change the effect to one that's similar to Knight of the Wild, where the effect only reduces when the card's in your hand, or, you can kind of reduce it, you can make it a 5/5 with taunt, so that, it has to be in your hand, it has to kind of clog up just a tiny bit, so that you actually have a chance of doing something with it, kind of. Or I was also thinking you can make it more hero power focused, which only reduces when basic totems are summoned. Sort of the same way Frost Giant is, except it's a 0 mana 5/5 taunt and specific to Shaman. I feel like all these could be a potential nerf that just kind of ramps up the level of the tempo out of the roof. And keeping this would leave more of a chance for decks to potentially catch up. Anyway, here's the next card, Tunnel Trog at number 3. This is the one drop that kind of led to the original aggro Shaman list back in the release of LOE. The combination of difficult to remove stat line of the 1/3 and the insane effect of just significantly better than Mana Warp makes this card such a broken auto include in the low Shaman list. And the fact that this card can be a 1 mana 3/3 or 1 mana 4/3, along with the protection of Feral Spirits and board clearing ability of Lightning Storm, is just too much tempo to be fair at all, honestly. No deck can compete with this card's insane gaining potential, and just seeing it on turn 1 is just not fun or interactive. So my suggestion for the nerf is to ideally reduce Tunnel Trog to a 1 mana 1/2 so that, similar to the 2 totems, the card is within reach of turn 1 Living Roots, Holy Smite, or Backstab. But I kind of thought back, and I was shifting more towards making it only gain 1 attack power each time you overload, rather than, for example, for whatever reason, Elemental Destruction, giving it 5 attack. It should just give it 1 attack, honestly. And then, or maybe both of these, so you make it a 1/2 and it only gains 1 attack. That way, the board's a 3/4 and a 2/2 when Totem Golem's played on turn 2 and Trog's on 1. And it's just slightly easier to clear. In addition, Trog would not be easy to snowball after a Lightning Storm was played, and the board left would be a 2/2 instead of a 3/3. I also had the thought of kind of making Trog gain 1 health for each overload as a 2/1, so it would be within hero power range and such, but that would kind of make the card unplayable. And we've seen Arcane Anomaly not really work the same way anyway. I think this card has a higher need to be nerfed than the rest, and it's important that the early game is as interactive one rather than I have this one drop I win kind of snowbally idea. So yeah, that's Tunnel Trog. After that, we have Tuskar Totemic at number 2. This has to be at the top of most players' lists, in my opinion. It wasn't as necessary to nerf as the number 1, for reasons I'll kind of explain shortly. But anyway, Tuskar is pretty much the poster child of my second main condition for nerfing the card. Tuskar has effectively no downside and generates too much upside to be gained. So when Tuskar is played and summons a basic totem, that's pretty fair. Pretty fair effect. There's absolutely no downside to playing it, as it gets, 3/4, which is pretty much, the 3-drop Dream standard. And it's split among 2 bodies, too. But even summoning a basic totem is not at all a downside, because Spirit Claws benefits off of summoning the Wrath of Air, Spell Power Totem. So when Tuskar rolls a Mana Tide or Flame Tongue, or at worst the Totem Golem, the win percentage just skyrockets so high for the Shaman player. And a 3-drop that 2 copies can be played should not have that kind of game-determining power. But there's just so much said about this very card that I don't think I need to go through all of it. Anyway, my nerf for this card would fall very similarly to what other players are saying. I would set this card to only summon basic totems. No doubt that any player in the community would want to allow Tuskar to still be able to roll 3-4 totem golems, because no player ever wants to have to face that again on turn 3. And when I was brainstorming these nerfs, I actually considered making it into a 2-1 and 2-2, but then I thought about I really thought about leaving Totem Golem as a potential role and decided against that. So a 3-mana 3-4. Gets you basically hero powers for you. 3-mana 3-4 would still see play. Summoning a basic totem still gives the ability to reduce the RNG off the hero power. Once again, Spirit Claws still does benefit from this. Honorable mentions include Totem Golem and Thunderbluff Valiant. Totem Golem's 4 health makes it too difficult to deal with. It's just please. This part of the design nearly ensures that the opponent will lose a 2-for-1 trade with it, or need to have exactly Spirit Claws, Rockbiter, or Fire War Axe, Ravaging Ghoul, or Fire War Axe, Blood to Igor kind of thing. I think this card could be a 4-3 maybe for Overload 2. That's kind of how I would nerf it. Wrathguard stats is actually beatable, because for 2-drops should not have that much 3 attack and just that much power. It's just way too much. So honestly, and then Thunderbolt Valiant has really only seen play very recently, but I feel like this card could give be less, because a 5-mana card that basically wins the game is not very good either. I feel like cards that win the game have to be like 7 or more, honestly. But I think this card could give totems either 1 attack or just 2 attacks, but only on your 2 attack, but during your turn only. So it kind of is like a Savage Roar effect. And then at number 1 we have finally Spirit Claws. I really have a lot to say about this card, man. We never saw this coming when Karazhan was being introduced. But anyway, I first want to thank the guy on Reddit who pointed out that this card is a significantly better card that many of you may not remember from the Goblins vs. Gnomes expansion, which is called Cogmaster's Wrench. So let's just start off by comparing these 2 cards. So first, Cogmaster's Wrench and Spirit Claws both have the same stat line of 1 attack and 3 durability, so no difference here. But the 2 major differences are, number 1, Cogmaster's Wrench costs 3 mana versus the 1 mana of Spirit Claws, and then Cogmaster's Wrench needs the player to have a mech versus the Spirit Claws needing spell power. So first thoughts, these differences are huge, dude. The Cogmaster's Wrench gets basically a Deadly Poison Dagger, it's a rogue card, on turn 3, and that at that point, I mean, it still needs to have a mech on board, and this has absolutely 0 synergy with rogue, and it forces them to play mechs, which honestly, why Blizzard? And by the time that this card comes out, which it really shouldn't, it's already too late to have any early game advantage. Meanwhile, we're looking at Spirit Claws, which has excellent synergy with the hero power, led around Tuskar, Totemic, Blood Mage, Thalnos, which also has excellent synergy with too many cards in the deck, and Azure Drake. But the main thing is, Spirit Claws comes out on turn 1. It's nearly an unwinnable game when your everyday Shaman plays Spirit Claws on turn 1 and casually hero powers directly into the 1-4 spell power totem to kill off your 1-drop. This card just has too much value for a 1-mana card and doesn't deserve all the power that it has. So my suggestion nerf would be to reduce the durability to 2, Fire War Axe, honestly, and increase the cost of it to 2 mana, or maybe both effects combined. So you'll have a 2 mana 1/3 that gives spell power. Just 1 mana cards are just dumb, and then or make it a 1/2 so that it's kind of like a conditional Fire War Axe, which people are thinking of nerfing Fire War Axe to a 2/2. 2 mana 2/2 that says Enrage. If your hero is damaged, then it gains +1 attack, which would be kind of cool. So a card that I may not have mentioned that you guys were thinking of is Malestrom Portal, which is indeed part of the strength of Shaman. It's undebatable, It kind of locked out the main counter of Zoo. But I just believe this card shouldn't be in the game at all. It's just a significantly better Arcane Explosion. It's a very, very poor design of Team 5 out of creation. And like I said, it just pushes Zoo out the window. You literally can't beat Shaman, Zoo just loses when this card is played, and just how easy it is to roll spell power totem is just not, it's not a very fun or interactive game, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, it really just shouldn't have been part of the game to begin with. Anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for listening to my complaints over this card game. I really just feel strongly about how the devs team needs to improve the health of the game, because without doing that, people are going to feel less and less like playing it, and I want what's best for the game as much want what's best for the players, you know. So if you guys like the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if you guys like this format of discussion. Also, let me know if there's any kind of other videos that you guys like me to see me do, because I'm going to try to post at least one video a week kind of like this. So thanks again, guys, and I will see you in the next video.